You intended to eat one square and found that you finished at least half the bar. And I'm guilty of that as well. I mean, as long as it stays in the wrapper, it's fine. As long as the box stays closed, it's fine. But once I start, there doesn't seem to be an off button other than the end of the box. The chocolate podcast had quite a lot of comments and also a lot of questions. I will address a couple of questions here. It will be in chapters, I hope, and then you can go to the questions that interest you. Question 1. Why can't I eat just one square? It's a genuine question, and it's one that sometimes carries shame and bewilderment, perhaps embarrassment. You intended to eat one square and found that you finished at least half the bar. And I'm guilty of that as well. I mean, as long as it stays in the wrapper, it's fine. As long as the box stays closed, it's fine. But once I start, there doesn't seem to be an off button other than the end of the box. Right, so part of this answer is engineering. The food industry has spent decades researching what they call the Bliss Point, the precise combination of sugar, fat and salt that makes a food maximally pleasurable. Not so sweet that it becomes cloying, not so fatty it feels heavy, just enough of everything to keep you wanting more without ever feeling fully satisfied. That's not an accident or a coincidence, it's a deliberate outcome of significant research investment. The goal of this Bliss Point engineering is repeat consumption. One square is a failure state from the manufacturer's perspective. But there's also a second part of the answer that's more specific to chocolate and more interesting. Most commercially available milk chocolate has a relatively low cocoa content. And that cocoa content, the specific compounds you're getting from the chocolate, the theobromine, the magnesium, the anandamide, they are present in relatively small quantities. Your body registers the signal, but it doesn't receive enough of the substance to feel satisfied. So it asks for more, and you eat more, and still the signal isn't quite complete. So you eat more again. It's not a weakness, it's your body making a reasonable request that the product is structurally unable to fulfill. Higher cocoa content chocolates, 70% and above, contain significantly more of what your body is actually asking for. And many people find that they generally can eat only 1 or 2 squares of 70% dark chocolate and feel done. Not because they have more willpower, but the signal was actually completed. And I say this as someone who started eating dark chocolate not for noble health reasons, but because it dampens the total amount I eat in one go. It works. It's not magic, just more of what the body was actually looking for. You can find references in the description or show notes. Question 2. What can I eat instead of chocolate when I need comfort? That's a very difficult question to answer because the reasons you eat chocolate depend on so many different things. You could be looking for magnesium. You could be looking for a dopamine hit. You can look for the anandamide. You can be looking for connection. So many things that you could be looking for. Like there's so many reasons why you are eating chocolate in the first place. If you eat chocolate for one specific reason, then you have to find a replacement for that particular reason. For me, personally, it's not sugar because I don't really have a particularly sweet tooth. I do like the mouthfeel of chocolate, and that's very hard to replace. So let's check out a couple of things you could be looking for. If the gap is dopamine. Any genuinely pleasurable activity produces dopamine. And the key here is genuinely. Not an activity that you think you should enjoy, but one that you actually enjoy. If that is music that moves you, go listen to music. If it's having a conversation with someone, have a conversation with someone. If it's a creative activity that absorbs you, go for that. Physical movement that you like rather than movements that you perform because you think you should. Your dopamine system doesn't care what produces the hit. It cares that the hit is real. Manufactured cheerfulness about activities you don't actually enjoy, that doesn't work. So yeah, if the gap is dopamine, do something you love. If the gap is anandamide, the bliss component, exercise produces anandamide. It is what a runner's high is. Meditation produces anandamide, certain music, particularly music that gives you chills, what researchers call a frisson, it produces anandamide. These are real documented physiological alternatives, not because they taste like chocolate, but because they activate the same receptors. If the gap is connection, and this may be an uncomfortable answer, no food fills a connection gap. Not chocolate, not anything else. If you're reaching for chocolate because you're lonely, because you feel unseen, because you need someone to be on your side, and chocolate is the most reliable candidate, chocolate will help briefly and the gap will remain. That's not judgment, it's an observation. Connection is medicine. It's not replaceable by food. It's an observation I've made, and connection is medicine. It is not replaceable by food. If this resonates, and hopefully I say it really gently, the most useful thing you can do is not find a better snack. It is to address the connection deficit directly. However that is possible in your life right now. And I really think a real-time one-to-one connection is best when you really see each other in person. I know that that's not always possible, and there are people who find their tribe online, and they can finally speak with people who are on the same wavelength as they are through the internet with people on the other side of the world. If that's your case, then by all means do that, start there. It's a tough nut to crack. A week ago, I drove through the night to be with my mum, and she passed a few days later. It was an amazing time. We were all there. We took turns to be with her, to sit with her, keeping her company so she wouldn't be alone. It was a hard time, but it was also very precious. I had a lot of time to think. So many people go through something difficult right now, and so many people are doing it alone. It's as if time stands still whilst the rest of the world keeps turning, and maybe they're not sure how to get back into it, or perhaps even if they want to. And I know that feeling because I sat with it this week. So when I'm back in the UK, I'm going to open up a small number of one-to-one sessions. Just us, you and I, 90 minutes. Whatever you're carrying, whether it's your health, your life, your next step, the things you can't quite say out loud to anyone else, I can sit with you, help you see more clearly, and help you find the next step for when you're ready to take that next step. The spaces are limited, since, as you can imagine, I've got quite a lot going on at the moment. So do check availability and book your time at thequalityoflife.quest/personal-chat. I'll see you there. If the gap is permission to stop, Sometimes the chocolate reach is not about chocolate at all. It's about needing 5 minutes, needing to stop, needing something that marks the transition from work to rest, from effort to ease. The chocolate is then the ritual, not the substance. And if that's what's happening, the question isn't what to eat instead. It's what ritual could mark the transition that isn't food. A specific tea, a specific piece of music, 5 minutes outside, something that signals to your nervous system, you can stop now. That's enough. This moment is yours. I hope this has given some insight in what you can eat instead of chocolate when you need comfort. It's perhaps a different answer than you would have imagined, and maybe it hits a nerve. Let me know in the comments. Question 3. Is chocolate actually an antidepressant? And people feel this intuitively and want to know if it's real. And the answer is partially, temporarily, and more complex than either yes or no. So the theobromine in the chocolate is a primary stimulant in chocolate. It produces a gentle, sustained alertness without the spike and crash of caffeine. It improves mood indirectly by making you feel more awake and capable, and it isn't dramatic, but it is measurable. Magnesium, as we've covered earlier, is essential for serotonin synthesis. Low magnesium contributes to low mood. Replenishing magnesium through dark chocolate can generally improve mood in people who are deficient. It isn't a placebo, it is biochemistry. Anandamide, the Bliss compound, temporarily elevates mood through the anandamide, the Bliss compound. It temporarily elevates the mood. It is real, it is documented, it is, however, very brief. The love chemical, let's call it that, the love chemical. It is present in chocolate, but as we discussed in chapter 3, it's mostly broken down before reaching the brain in significant quantities. The mood effect from PEA in chocolate is probably small. The mood effect from the ritual, the taste, the reward association, the permission to enjoy something is probably larger than the effect from the PEA itself. Here's another thing. The anticipation of chocolate activates dopamine before you've eaten a single piece. The thought of chocolate, the unwrapping, the smell, these trigger the reward system. And some research suggests that the anticipation produces as much dopamine as the consumption itself, which is why eating chocolate while distracted, scrolling, watching, working, is less satisfying than eating it with full attention. The anticipation phase, which is where much of the neurochemical benefit lies, gets skipped entirely. So, is chocolate an antidepressant? It has genuine mood-affecting properties through multiple mechanisms. It is not a treatment for clinical depression and should not be used as one, but dismissing it as pure comfort eating or marketing is equally inaccurate. The Mayans treated cacao as medicine, and they were right. They just ate it in different quantities and in a different form than we do nowadays. Question 4. Why does cheap chocolate never satisfy me, but expensive chocolate does? I touched already on it in the podcast itself, but let's go through it again. So this question makes complete intuitive sense to anyone who's eaten both. And the answer is specific enough to be genuinely useful. The primary reason is cocoa butter. Pure cocoa butter melts at exactly 37 degrees Celsius, body temperature. This is not coincidental. It is the property that gives high-quality chocolate its characteristic melt, the way it dissolves on your tongue in a sensation that is generally physically pleasurable. Your body recognizes this melt. It is part of what makes the experience feel complete. Cheaper chocolates substitute cocoa butter. because cocoa butter is expensive, and they substitute it with vegetable fats. These fats have different melting points, and they don't melt in the same way. The mouthfeel is different, slightly waxy, slightly incomplete. And your body notices this even when your conscious mind doesn't register it clearly. The satisfaction signal doesn't quite arrive. So you eat more, looking for the completion that doesn't come. And here's where the Freddo reference is useful. And for my listeners outside the UK, let me explain. Freddo is a small frog-shaped chocolate bar that has been a British childhood institution for decades. It used to cost 10p, and it now costs 25p or more. And in that price rise, the recipe has also changed. The cocoa butter content has been reduced. The bar is smaller, and many British people who grew up with Freddos report that they don't taste the same as they remember. And they're not imagining it. The product has changed. The memory of satisfaction was formed with a different recipe. This is shrinkflation applied not just to quantity, but to quality. Less of what actually works for more money, leaving you less satisfied and therefore likely to buy more. And the practical implication, a smaller amount of generally high quality chocolate, higher cacao percentage, real cocoa butter, minimal additives, satisfies more completely than a larger amount of cheap chocolate. And it's often more expensive per bar. It is frequently less expensive per unit of actual satisfaction. Question 5. Is white chocolate actually chocolate? And the short answer, technically, in the strictest sense, no. White chocolate contains no cocoa solids. None. Nothing whatsoever. What it does contain is cocoa butter, the fat extracted from the cacao bean, plus sugar, milk solids, and vanilla. It has the fat of chocolate without the flavonoids, the theobromine, the magnesium, the anandamide, or any of the other compounds that give dark and milk chocolate their specific properties. Under EU and UK regulations, white chocolate must contain at least 20% cocoa butter, at least 14% milk solids, and no more than 55% sugar to be legally called white chocolate. It meets the regulatory definition, but in terms of what it actually does, nutritionally and neurochemically, it is closer to a high-fat confectionery than to chocolate. And this matters not to make white chocolate lovers feel bad. If you love white chocolate, love it. It's generally delicious and there's nothing wrong with enjoying it. But it explains why white chocolate doesn't satisfy a chocolate craving the way dark or milk chocolate might. The specific compounds your body might be seeking, the magnesium, the theobromine, the anandamide, they're not present in white chocolate. So if you find yourself eating white chocolate and still wanting real chocolate, that's probably why. The best white chocolate, and it does exist, has a genuine warmth and complexity from high quality cocoa butter that cheap white chocolate entirely lacks. If you're going to eat white chocolate, the quality difference is as significant as with dark or milk. So there you go, 5 questions. The questions you were actually asking. Why you can't stop at one square and why that's engineering, not weakness. What actually fills the comfort gap and why fruit and herbal tea aren't the answer. Whether chocolate is an antidepressant and what the mind knew that we're only now measuring. Why expensive chocolate satisfies and cheap chocolate doesn't. And what cacao butter has to do with it. And whether white chocolate is actually chocolate. Chocolate doesn't ask silly questions, chocolate understands. And that's one of the most shared chocolate quotes on the internet. And I think it gets at something real. Not that chocolate is better than human connection, but that sometimes you need something reliable, uncritically on your side, something that doesn't judge or demand or require anything from you. understanding what that need really is, whether it's magnesium, dopamine, or any of the other things, that's the beginning of a different relationship with chocolate, if you accept that challenge. Not one where you eat less out of guilt. It's more about understanding and more about curiosity. The references for this episode are on my website, hopefully, at thequalityoflife.quest. You can go and look them up. They're not there yet, but I hope they'll be there soon. So once this comes out, I hope it's there. And if you have a question that hasn't been answered yet, put it in the comments, and who knows, there might be a Q&A number 2. Or if it's something better explored in a conversation than a comment box, the link to book a session is below or somewhere around this episode. Take care of yourself, and if you eat the chocolate tonight, be present for it. It deserves your full attention. May the road rise up to meet you. Until next time, see you. Bye.